So the quickest route for an actor, a writer, a producer, or a director is to learn something about the laws of money, how you find money. There's a lot of money in this country, though it's been shifting the pockets that it's in, but there's a lot of money. And one can make a film for a relatively small amount of money, fractions of this amount.
Right.
According to the unions, low budget is anything under $5 million.
Right.
According to me, low budget would be under $1 million. We know Blair Witch Project, for better or for worse, based on whom you ask, cost between $50,000 and $80,000. It made $150 million.
Yeah, you remember.
So,
which I still haven't seen.
And it was a cultural phenomenon created by, I might add, a marketing genius.
Yeah.
John Hegeman is a man I met in the early 90s. He was apprenticing to a man named David Forbes, who was a marketing genius. David was the head of marketing for MGM in Rain Man, and then he was the head of marketing at Orion for Dances with Wolves and Silence of the Lambs. So let's see, a film about an autistic man, a cannibal, and Native Americans. Not easy sells.
Right.
They all made over $100 million, and they all won Oscars. So David knew his stuff, and he was mentoring a young marketing genius named John Hegeman, whom I talked to in about 1994, and I said, so what's happening in the world of movie marketing? And he said, well, there's this thing coming called the internet. I said, what's that? And he told me. I said, what are you going to do with it? He said, I need a film to market on the internet.
Wow.
Fade out. About 3 years later, I was at Sundance in Colorado, and Sundance is, from my experience, been a nightmare. Everybody stands there with 2 cell phones, one in each hand, and $20 cappuccinos, and is standing outside the theaters, not inside the theaters, outside having social events. And I saw everybody walk into a 9 a.m. screening, of Blair Witch. Within 10 minutes, 95% of the audience had left. And John didn't leave. And John walked out at the end of it, and I said, is that the one? And he said, mm-hmm. And he took it and ran with it and made $150 million on a $50,000 investment.
What?
Marketed entirely through bright ideas and through the internet.
Yeah.
So we are in a free-for-all at the moment. The studios have no identity. They don't know who or what they are. They are basically distribution facilities.
Right.
They make 10 films a year. They cannot support a distribution organization on 10 pieces of product.
Right.
So they have to acquire, for every one they make, they acquire 10 to 20 more. Those are the films that independents and entrepreneurial people make.
Slumdog, for instance.
Slumdog, for instance, Full Monty, Wedding Banquet, Train Spotting. Every year Variety produces a list of the biggest money-making films of the year, not based on gross, but based on rate of return on investment.
Right.
And the top 10, except for Titanic, which was unique,
the
top 10 are always low-budget, independently made films. We can even go back. Studios used to make lower-budget films. American Graffiti cost $400,000, of which $200 was spent on music licensing and $200 spent on the film. It grossed $400 million. That's the biggest rate of return in the history of film. I guess my point is, and that began Lucas's major career. My point is that the film industry today doesn't really know what it is. People like to look at moving pictures. I'd like to look at your pictures. Would you like to look at my pictures? It's a voyeuristic tendency that people have. But to make it under the umbrella of a studio, that's $100 million for production. How many times is a studio going to trust a director? They'll go to somebody they know.
Right.
And so the route into the business for most people who are on the outskirts or outside altogether is entrepreneurial. Therefore, you got to know something about the laws of money, which is why I wrote this other book called Selling Your Film, A Guide to the Contemporary Marketplace.
Nice.
And this takes the whole process, starting with the property. You've got to have a piece of literary material that you own or have commissioned to be written.
Nice.
And then you learn how to, I call it, mine your Rolodex. And you don't want to go to jail, so you don't say fraudulent things like, this is the next Blair Witch. Sorry, that's a fraudulent statement.
Wow.
You can't say it. So I guide people through the legalistics, But you got to have a piece of material that you feel strongly enough
Yeah.
about. Then we go to somebody like you, as you know, I've gone to with me and my students for casting.
Right.
Because the actors, it takes 3 ingredients to make a movie. Talent, meaning actors usually,
Right.
and a piece of literary material.
Right.
Some evidence that there will be distribution, and money. Now, unless you've made a film before, it's hard to get evidence that you can get a distribution.
Right.
So you have to have actors. How can you get actors if you don't have money? So that's when we start. You go back and forth, you keep
Right.
all the plates spinning,
Right.
and you, given your skill and ability, have a group of actors who are excellent.
Yeah.
And I, as a director-producer, would look for who is it that resonates. A lot of guys know how to read lines well,
Right.
but some people resonate
Right.
beyond. So you get the actors, you have some money, and then you make the film.
Yeah.
And then you go get distribution.
Yeah. Good.
Don't ever lie. Don't
Right.
ever tell your investor, yeah, you'll make money back. You don't know, you can't even guarantee to an investor that you'll have a finished film.
Yeah.
All you can say is, sir, ma'am, mom, dad,
Yeah.
aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, Kiwanis Club, bowling league president. All I can tell you is I will do my damnedest to make the best film I can.
Yeah.
And then you have a finished product, and then you've got to go about getting it into the marketplace, which is what this film is about. And the 2 main routes that you know are you play the film festival game,
Yeah.
or you do targeted screenings for distributors. And that's a whole science. I don't
Right.
know if